going to work out these 20 problems in preparation for your upcoming quiz. Alright, so this first page is just factoring trinomials where that has the form of x squared plus bx plus c, right? So there's nothing in front of our squared term. Alright, so let's look at this first one. We have a k squared plus 11k plus 30. Alright, so that's going to get us, we need to find numbers that multiply to 30 and add to 11. Alright, so factors of 30 that add to 11. You can think of factors of 30, you might be able to think of it quickly. 5 and 6, right? If I do 5 plus 6, that does get me 11. Right, so this trinomial is going to factor as k plus 5 and k plus 6. All right, so once you get your two numbers, that's how you get your factor, right? So let's look at the next one. X squared plus 6x plus 9. I'm looking for factors of 9 that add to 6. Right, factors of 9, we have very limited options, right? 1 times 9 or 3 times 3. Right, if I do 1 plus 9, that gets me 10. That's not what we're looking for, so those are not going to be our factors. 3 plus 3 is going to get me 6. That is what we're looking for. So that means this trinomial is going to factor as x plus 3 times x plus 3. All right. Let's look at this one. T squared plus 7t plus 10. All right, I'm looking for factors of 10 that add to 7. All right, so factors of 10 are going to be 10 times 1 or 2 times 5. Right, if I do 10 plus 1, that's going to get me 11. Not what we're looking for. We want it to add to 7. If I do 2 plus 5, that's 7. That is what we're looking for, so my answer is going to be t plus 2 and t plus 5. All right. Now the next one, I want factors of 35 that add to negative 12. All right, keep in mind, since we want to add to a negative number, both of our numbers have to be negative. All right, so for example, factors of 35 are going to be 5 and 7. Since I wanted to add to negative 12, I'm going to make both of them negative. All right, the only way to get a positive from multiplying is if they're both negative or both positive. But since we're adding to a negative, that's what accounts for our sign difference. All right, so if you add these together, you get negative 12, and that is what we're looking for. All right, so that means this trinomial is going to factor as x minus 5, x minus 7. All right, so be mindful of your signs. All right, don't write a minus when you got a positive one, or don't write a plus when you got a negative factor. All right, so be careful with your signs. All right, this next one, factors of 45 that add to negative 14 are going to be, let's think of just factors of 45 is going to be 5 and 9. Since I wanted to add to a negative, I'm going to consider the negative factors. Right, if I do negative 5 plus negative 9, that's going to get me a negative 14, and that is what we're looking for. All right, so that means this trinomial is going to factor as x minus 5 times x minus 9. All right, and the next one, 42, I want factors of 42 that add to negative 13. All right, some factors of 42, 6 and 7. That's the most obvious one that stands out to me, so let's see if it works. I want them to add to a negative, so I'm going to make both of these negative, negative 6, negative 7. And then when you go to add them, you get a negative 13. All right, and that is what we're looking for. All right, so that means this trinomial is going to factor as m minus 6 and m minus 7. All right, now let's look at the next one. I want factors of 56 or negative 56 that add to, we have a nothing in front of our n term, so we assume it's a 1. All right, so I want factors of negative 56 that add to a positive 1. All right, keep in mind when you want to multiply to a negative number, you need to consider both options for both of your factors. So for example, factors of 56 I know are going to be 8 and 7. Right, I know that one of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. So let's see if we make 8 negative and 7 positive, if that works. But if it doesn't, we need to consider a positive 8 and a negative 7. Right, so we need to see if each of these work. Right, so negative 8 plus 7 is going to get you negative 1. Right, that is not what we're looking for. We're looking for a positive 1. All right, so if I do positive 8 minus 7, that is going to get me a positive 1. So this is what we're looking for, this pair of numbers, not these. All right, so this is going to factor as n plus 8 and n minus 7. All right, and now same thing here with number 8. Right, I want factors of negative 18 that add to negative 3. Keep in mind, when we want to multiply to a negative, we need to consider both options, right? So for example, some factors of 18 are going to be 2 and 9, right? So I need to make one negative, one positive, right? But I also need to consider the other option when one is positive and the other is negative. Some other factors are going to be 6 and 3, so I need to make one of them negative and one of them positive, and then the same thing with the other one, right? Make one of them negative, one of them positive. All right, so let's combine these. Negative 2 plus 9 is going to get me 7. Not what we're looking for. 2 minus 9 is going to get me a negative 7. Also not what we're looking for. We're looking for a negative 3. 6 minus 3 is going to get you a positive 3. Not what you're looking for. Negative 6 plus 3 is going to get you a negative 3. That is what we're looking for. All right, so we're going to use these two numbers in our factors, right? This is going to become x minus 6 and x plus 3. Now let's look at this one. I want factors of negative 36 that add to negative 5. All right, so again, let's just keep picking some factors. Some factors of 36, 6 and 6. All right, one of them should be negative, one of them should be positive. Keep in mind with 6 and 6 though, since they're the same number, if you add them, you get 0. And that's going to be true if I switch the order, right? So we know it's not going to be 6 and 6. Some other factors are going to be 4 and 9, right? If I made one of them negative, one of them positive, right? So positive 4, negative 9, negative 4, positive 9. All right, so 4 minus 9 is going to get you a negative 5. That is what you're looking for. You don't need to check the rest. So that means a positive 4 and a negative 9 are going to be my two values inside of my factors. So it's going to be v plus 4 and a v minus 9. And then last one on this page, I'm looking for factors of 40 that add to negative 14. Right? Positive 40 needs to add to a negative number. I'm going to look for two negatives. Right? The one that stands out to me is going to be negative 4 and negative 10. If I combine these, I do get negative 14. So this is going to factor as c minus 4 and c minus 10. Next page. This is for if you have something in front of your x squared term, right? So the steps for this are a little bit lengthier than before, but similar steps, right? So if you remember from our lesson, the first thing that we always want to check is if there's a greatest common factor. Now between 2, 13, and 15, we don't have a greatest common factor. Right, so from here, you have to multiply the first times the last. So 2 times 15 is going to get you 30. All right, and then you're going to look for factors of 30 that add to 13. That's going to be 10 and 3. All right, 10 plus 3 is going to get you 13. So from here, you can set it up the same way that we did before and do w plus 10, w plus 3. The only difference here is that if you have something in front of your square term, that's what you want to divide each of your terms by. All right, so w plus 10 divided by 2, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we're going to get w plus 5. And then w plus 3 divided by 2 does not simplify. If it doesn't simplify, you slide it out front. So it's going to be 2w plus 3. All right, and then that's our process for these kinds of problems. All right, let's look at the same thing with the next one. Between 3, 20, and 12, I don't have a greatest common factor, All right, so I'm just going to do first times last. 3 times 12 is 36. So I need factors of 36 that add to 20. Maybe we don't know that off the top of our head. Let's start thinking of factors. 6 and 6, 4 and 9, 2 and 18. If I do 6 plus 6, that's 12. Not what we're looking for. 4 plus 9 is 13. Also not what we're looking for. 2 plus 18 is 20. That is what we're looking for. So it's going to be a 2 and an 18. All right, so I'm going to do a d plus 2. D plus 18. All right, we're not done though because we have something in front of our squared term. I want to divide by that number. All right, d plus 2 divided by 3. 2 divided by 3 doesn't simplify, so I'm going to slide it out front. So 3d plus 2, and then d plus 10 divided by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. And that does divide evenly, so I'm going to write it down. All right, so it's going to look something like that. Okay. Now, if you look at this one, between 6, 2, and 20, we do have a common factor. Right? If you have a common factor, you always need to take it out first. So it's going to be 2 times, and then when you divide everything on the inside by 2, you're left with a 3x squared minus x minus 10. All right, and now the inside we can factor. So I'm going to do 3 times negative 10 is going to get me a negative 30. And I want factors of negative 30 that are going to add to negative 1. If I don't see a number, you assume it's 1. All right, and then factors of negative 30 that are going to add to negative 1. Well, I know factors of 30 are going to be 5 and 6. All right, so let's see what happens. I want to make one of them negative, one of them positive. If I want to multiply to a negative. All right, if I do negative 5 plus 6, that's going to get me a positive 1. Not what we're looking for. If I do 5 minus 6, that's negative 1. That is what we're looking for. So it's going to be x plus 5 times x minus 6. We have to slide and divide here because there is a 3 in front of our x squared. So divide by 3. 5 divided by 3 doesn't simplify. You slide it out front. It's going to be 3x plus 5. 6 divided by 3 does simplify. It becomes an x minus 2. And then don't forget about that 2 out front. It's going to be part of our final answer. All right. Now, the next one, same idea, right? 5, 24, and 5 don't have a common factor, so I'm going to just multiply a times c. 5 times negative 5 is going to get me a negative 25. I need factors of negative 25 that add to negative 24. The most obvious choice is going to be 25 times 1, right? So if I do 25 times 1, if I make 25 negative, if I do negative 25 plus 1, that's going to get me a negative 24. That is what we're looking for, so I'm going to use those numbers as our factors. All right, so t minus 25 times t plus 1. All right, we have to slide and divide here since there's a number out front. Let's divide both of these terms by 5. All right, t minus 25 divided by 5 is just t minus 5. And then that 5 on the bottom we can slide out front. It's going to get me a 5t plus 1. All right. And then number 15, between 3, 9, and 84, you do have a common factor here. All right, so it might not be super obvious. Maybe you don't know about 84. You know for sure that 3 and 9 have a common factor. So you can always check and divide, right? So you can do 3 divided by 84, right? Do long division, see if you get something that works. All right, and it looks like it's going to get me 28. All right, so then if I divide everything by 3, if I pull out the 3 as a common factor, I get x squared plus 3x minus 28. All right, and then on the inside, I just have a regular trinomial like we had on the previous page. There's nothing in front of our x squared inside of our parentheses, so all I need are factors of negative 28 that add to a positive 3. And that's going to be a 7 and a negative 4. All right, so this is just going to become x plus 7, x minus 4. I don't need to do slide and divide here because you already pulled out that common factor. All right, so it's just going to be something that looks like this. All right, number 16, see if you could pull out a common factor as well. All right, so you can take out a 2, for example, in these problems. If I divide everything by 2, I'm left with a 3x squared minus 5x minus 2. Alright, so in the inside, there is something in front of our x squared, so I need to do 3 times negative 2, which is going to get me a negative 6. I need factors of negative 6 that are going to add to negative 5. Alright, and that's going to get me a negative 6 and a positive 1, right, which is negative 5. Alright, so then we can do x minus 6, x plus 1. Alright, don't forget the 2 out front. Alright, here we need to slide and divide, so I'm going to divide everything by 3, since that's what's inside of my parentheses in front of our x squared. So then we get x minus 2. Alright, 6 divided by 3 is 2. 1 divided by 3 doesn't simplify, slide it out front, you get 3x plus 1 with a 2 in front. Alright, and then you get an answer that looks something like that. Alright, same exact thing here. Actually, no, this one's a little bit different. So when there's a negative in front, I always take it out. So factor out a negative 1. There is a common factor here, no matter if you see a number or not as the greatest common factor. If there's a negative in the very, very front, you always want to take that out. Right? So take out that negative 1, and all that's going to do is it's going to change the sign of everything on the inside. So it's going to become 5x squared minus 17x plus 14, right? Change the sign of everything. And then from here, you can do the same thing that you've done before. 5 times 14, right, should get you 70. So I need factors of 70 that add to negative 17. All right, it's going to get me a negative 10 and a negative 7. All right, so we can do x minus 10, x minus 7. All right, slide and divide. There's a number in front of my x squared, so I'm going to divide by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, so we get an x minus 5. X minus 2. And then 7 divided by 5 doesn't simplify. Slide it out front. It becomes 5x minus 7. Don't forget about that negative 1 that we took out. All right, so it's going to look something like this. All right. Now the next one, same exact thing. I have a negative in the very front. I don't want that in my final answer, or I don't want that in the process of factoring it, so I'm going to take out a negative 1. Doing that is going to change the sign of everything on the inside. All right, so then from here we can do our slide and divide method by first multiplying 4 times negative 5 to get negative 20. So I want factors of negative 20 that add to negative 19. That's going to be a negative 20 and a positive 1. All right, so then it's going to be an m minus 20 times an m plus 1. All right, don't forget about the negative 1 out front. There is a 4 inside of our parentheses, so I do want to divide by that number. 20 divided by 4 is 5, so we get an m minus 5. 1 divided by 4 doesn't simplify, so I'm going to slide that number out front. And then don't forget about the negative 1. So then this right here is your final answer. All right, over here, I don't have a negative in the front, so I just check if there's a common factor. Between 6, 7, and 3, I don't have a common factor, so I'm just going to do 6 times negative 3, which is negative 18. I want factors of negative 18 that add to negative 7. That's going to be a negative 9 and a positive 2. All right, so I'm going to get an x minus 9, x plus 2. All right, there is a 6 in the front, so I'm going to divide everything by 6. All right, these do simplify. I'm going to get x minus 3 over 2 and an x plus 1/3. Right, these do simplify, but they're still fractions. If they're still fractions, you still want to slide it out front. So you're still going to, so in this case, you slide and you divide. So it's going to be a 2x minus 3 and a 3x plus 1. All right. Now this last one, as always, check if there's a GCF. Between 18, 15, and 18, you can take out a 3. So if you take out a 3, you're going to be left with a 6v squared minus 5v minus 6. All right. And then, as always, you do first times last. That's going to get me a negative 36. I want factors of negative 36 that add to negative 5. That's going to be a negative 9 and a positive 4. All right, so I'm going to do a v minus 9, v plus 4. All right, don't forget about the 3 up front. All right, we had a 6 on the inside of our parentheses, so I'm going to divide both of these by 6. And then simplify as much as you can. These are going to simplify to v minus 3 over 2. And v plus 2 over 3. Alright, don't forget about that 3 out front. And then you want to slide. Alright, you're going to slide your denominators to the front. Alright, so you get a 3 and a 2v minus 3 and a 3v plus 2. Alright, and that's your review. Alright, I know that these problems are going to be a little bit lengthier than some of the other ones. They are super important though, not just in this class, but in future classes. You are definitely going to see this no matter what math you take in the future, right? So they take a little bit of time, some of them, and I know that I kind of went over the factors a little bit quickly in this video, like trying to find the factors that work. If you need to write out more factors than what I wrote in this video, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you compute them correctly. So for example, you know your integer rules. You know, for example, that negative 9 plus 2 is a negative 7 and not a positive 7. Or you know to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger, right? So those are all things that are going to help you in this lesson, right? You need to know your integer rules and you need to know factors of common numbers, all right? And that's all for this quiz review.